Hey everybody, welcome to Tech for Deliberation and Participation. We have a great lineup today, so I'm just going to jump into it. As usual, we'll do 3 presentations followed by some joint Q&A. So you can hit the Slido. Maybe we can pull that up to add your questions along the way. So I'm excited about all of our speakers today. We've got Miriam Levin from Demos, Louise Cato and Jesse Ashmore from Delib, and Colin McGill from Polis. So let's turn over to Miriam online for a quick remote presentation, and then we'll go back to in-person. Hi, Miriam. Welcome.
Hello. Welcome from London, and really sorry not to be there in person. So yes, I'm Miriam Levin. I'm the Director of Participatory Programmes at a cross-party think tank based in the UK called Demos. For anybody who doesn't know us, we are the cross-party. We've been around for about 30 years, and essentially we function in order to try and support governments of all different scales to work better for people. And the way we do that is by trying to make sure that people are at the heart of decisions that government makes. So a lot of the work that I do is around trying to make democracy work better for people. But today I'm very grateful to have been invited here to talk to you about a new program that we've just launched at Demos called Waves. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, what our plans are, what we're going to do. It's worth saying that we have just launched it, so it's not a thing that exists yet. We are very much in the kind of test and learn, trying to work out how to do it. So if you've got questions about technical details, I might not know the answers because we haven't figured them out yet, but we're really excited to get going on it. Essentially what Waves is, it's a program that we've launched to try and see how can we use tech and AI in order to make democracy work better for people. So can we do democracy differently in a way that really involves people in decisions that affect their lives? How can we use it to bring people together to tackle really contentious issues that they're facing both locally and then hopefully later nationally? But before I get into the details of what we're going to do, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the problem that we're trying to solve by kind of creating this program. It's something that I'm sure, given the nature of TICTeC, people have spoken about at loads of other panels. But essentially, the reason we've created this program, the reason behind Waves, is it feels like we're staring down the barrel of a democratic emergency. So unlike in the US, where it feels like a raging conflagration, it's more of a slow burn, but it's an emergency in terms of how people are feeling about our democracy and the foundations on which it rests. It feels like there is an emergency. And the reason we say that is because it feels like democracy isn't working for people. We know trust in politicians it's fallen off a cliff. We did some polling at Demos last year, which showed that 76% of people don't believe that politicians make decisions in the best interest of the country. And locally, the national survey done by the government showed pretty much the same thing. It said they found that only 23% of people feel they can influence decisions in their local area, but 50% of people want to. So we know there's appetite to get involved and a sense of lack of agency, disempowerment. People just don't feel like they've got any handle on the decisions that affect their lives. And it's kind of not surprising then that people are losing faith in democracy. It's like the democratic status quo, it's not working for them. Their lives are not getting better. It doesn't feel like you've got any way of actually changing or influencing things that are happening around you. And at the same time, we also know that there's plenty of methods and plenty of ways in which democracy can work better. So we know democracy can be done differently. We know there's ways of giving people power and agency of the decisions that affect them. You've got participatory methods, deliberative methods, citizen assemblies, participatory budgeting, like all of those like incredible and powerful and beautiful methods enable people to come together, to work through solutions, to come together for the common good and really understand what's going to kind of help to tackle some of the what feels like otherwise intractable challenges facing the country. We know those processes work, but to run a deep, long-form deliberative process like a citizens' assembly costs hundreds of thousands of pounds, months of work. And even though we know there are plenty of local governments and national governments and institutions who really want to enable people to take part and kind of take on some of these more democratic innovations, the cost in terms of money and staff time is just prohibitive. Like, certainly in the UK, most local authorities are about to go bankrupt. They just don't have the money or the resources to be able to do it, which means that these fantastic methods that are out there aren't being mainstreamed. So given all of that, the reason we came up with Waves is to see how we can use the best of tech and AI to make it easier, quicker, cheaper for local councils. So we're particularly focusing on local government, for them to involve more people in more democratic decisions. It's not going to take away all the costs, obviously, or indeed all of the time. But if we can make it materially less difficult to do and more cost effective, then we think more people will be able to take it up. And we're doing that. We're leading a coalition of partners. It's not just Demos. We've got €1 million to kind of make this happen. So we have a lot of partners to work with to drive it forward. We're working in the UK with an organisation called New Local, who they're a network organisation of a lot of forward-thinking local authorities, working with tech innovators, CASM Technology, and two digital democracy platforms, PSi and Remesh, which I will tell you a little bit more about when I talk through exactly how the process is going to work. Like I say, it is very much at the early stages. So this, at the moment, is theoretical, but we're very much hoping that we're going to be able to trial it and see how it works in practice. Essentially, in fact, what I'm going to do, I'm going to share a slide so you can see the process as I'm talking about it, which might make it come to life a bit. There we go. I'm really hoping you can see that. So essentially, Waves is a way of enabling people to get involved in solving a knotty, difficult local challenge, both at scale, so lots of people getting involved in a relatively light touch way, and also in depth, so a smaller number of people really deliberating deeply on the hardest bits of the problem. In terms of the process we're going to go through, we're starting the trial in 2 local authorities. So we're working in London, in the London Borough of Camden, and in South Staffordshire District Council, which is in the West Midlands, the west of England. And for those of you who don't know those 2 particular places, which you might not if you're not from the UK, they are about as different as it's possible to be. So Camden is urban, relatively wealthy. They use a lot of innovative and democratic tools. They are very forward-thinking, and they are Labour left-wing controlled. South Staffordshire is rural, conservative controlled, so more right-wing controlled. Much less money in the area. They've never done anything like this before. And our point was, if we're going to trial it, if we can trial it into completely different areas and we can make it work in both, it can pretty much work anywhere. So the first bit of the process is to work really deeply and closely with those 2 local authorities to really understand and define what the problem is that they want to open up to their local residents. In Camden, it's going to be around social care. In South Staffordshire, it's going to be around a big housing development. We think it's going to be around a big housing development that is coming, that is going to be incredibly contentious. So we need to first define the problem really tightly, get the scope right. And then the process starts. So the first stage is about gathering ideas. So essentially, we're going out really, really broadly to reach as many people as possible to capture their ideas on how to tackle the issue. And we're using a digital platform called Remesh, which is really easy and light touch for people to take part. So we're going to really reduce the barriers to kind of involvement, so people can just put in their idea, how they're going to tackle the problem, and then they can upvote or downvote other people's ideas. And through the tooling on the site, we're able to see where the consensus lies between the ideas that people are putting in and where things are on the edges that people are like, no, not that. That isn't the thing that we all think is actually going to make the biggest difference. Obviously, we want as many people, thousands of people to take part. We're going to advertise it widely, use the local councils networks, and also work with the community partner to reach more deeply into communities for people who wouldn't otherwise usually find out about this sort of thing or take part. So the AI tool there is allowing us to cluster the ideas, create them into themes, see where the consensus division is, and kind of basically make it much, much easier and faster to be able to process all this huge input that we are very much hoping people are going to have. The second stage, the developing recommendations, will take those thousands of ideas, and then we're going to put them into a deep deliberation. So we're going to bring together 100 randomly selected people who represent the demography of the local population. And like a citizen assembly, like a deliberative process, they will come together on the online platform site to really work through all those ideas, consider which are the most promising, flesh them out, work through the difficult trade-offs, and come up with their kind of first stage recommendations. And PSi's platform that we're going to be using for this uses AI to help facilitate the conversations and kind of enable people to reach that kind of consensus on what really works for them. And then also to analyze the conversations after the fact so we can see how people reached the recommendations. Like, what were the arguments that really enabled people or moved people on in the discussion to kind of come towards these particular recommendations. So we've got recommendations at stage 2. We could just leave it there, hand those over to the local authorities, to Camden or South Staffordshire. But what we really think is important here is that the widest community has a real sense of ownership over the ideas. So what we're going to do is put the draft ideas back out on the Remesh platform to ask the widest possible community for their help in refining the recommendations. Like, what have we missed? How can we make these stronger? How can we make them better? And with that kind of large-scale community feedback then feeds back into the side platform, so it goes from broad to narrow to broad, back to narrow again to the 100 people, the same 100 people. And they, with that kind of public mandate, they will refine and finalise the recommendations, and those ideas then finally get presented back to Camden and South Staffordshire. What I just want to say really quickly is that there's a bit missing here that kind of binds it all together, that kind of makes it one kind of seamless end-to-end process. We kind of need to create that, because what we want this to eventually be is kind of not a just off-the-shelf plug and play kind of process that anybody can pick up and do. It's still a lot of work. You still have to really think about your question, how you're going to draw people in. But we do want to make it just that much more simple. And so we're working with CASM Tech to kind of create the glue that holds all the processes together. So the input from one becomes the output from one becomes the input for the next stage. And so it can be really simply used by councils as they decide that they want to engage their communities in these sort of decisions. So CASM Tech is kind of looking at what's going to help that. What are the binding bits? So one of the tools that they are creating is making it easier to interrogate all the information and documents and data about a topic. So if anybody kind of in the audience ever run a citizens assembly, it's really hard to kind of create the information that's kind of the learning that the participants go through in order to be able to really get under the skin of a topic. So what the CASM Tech tool is going to do is we're going to feed in all like huge amounts of information, really good, robust sources of information. And then the tool will essentially digest all of that, and then it'll be available to ask questions of. So any council worker or participant or anyone associated with the project can ask a question about social care or about the housing that's going to be built, knowing that we've put in a really robust set of data and that they can ask questions of it to be able to learn and really kind of find out the information that they need for themselves and get a really straightforward answer to what might be quite a complex question. So that's essentially kind of the process that we're going to undertake. We are, obviously it's test and learn, we want to know that we've actually made a difference. So we are going to do pre and post surveys in order to understand how people's views about the council, their sense of agency or power over decision making, their confidence in the policy that comes out the other end. We're going to test whether that changes before and after the process has been undertaken. And lastly, this is only with 2 councils in the test, but we want to make sure that the learning can spread as widely as possible. So working with New Local, we've got a group of, I think now 28 local councils who are coming with us on this learning journey. So they're going to kind of come with us as we test this, as we get things right, as we get things wrong, as we kind of learn how this process can work. So hopefully by the end of the 2-year process that this test will run for, those councils then have a lot of information and a lot of knowledge and a lot of confidence to be able to take the tool and then run with it themselves. So that's kind of the main bit of the process. Like I said, we're very much at the beginning of the journey. We're really excited about the potential of this tool to make it not cost-free, not resource-free, but that much easier, quicker, cheaper for institutions to take on in the future. We know we're going to learn a lot. We know some things are going to work, sometimes some things are not going to work. And basically, my offer to you is follow it, learn with us, input where you can. If you've got ideas how we can make this better, tools that we could potentially use, we would love to hear about it. Please sign up for updates, kind of join us as we kind of go through finding out whether it is possible to do this and what sort of difference these sort of tech and AI tools can make in order to enable more people get involved in more decisions, in more democratic decisions in the places where they live.